You know the drill. Your executive says, let's do an offsite. And suddenly you have 12 tabs open, 3 spreadsheets going, and a bad case of decision fatigue. This is where Troop shines, helping you plan without the chaos. Whether it's an offsite, a team retreat, or a last-minute meeting, Troop lets you compare locations, budgets, and travel options to make confident decisions. Troop keeps you organized every step of the way. So no more chasing info or juggling last-minute changes across 5 different platforms. If you are ready to take control of your meetings, head to leaderassistant.com/troop. That's leaderassistant.com/troop.
Hi, my name is Leah Warwick, and today's leadership quote comes from Harvey Firestone, and it is, "The growth and development of people is the highest calling of leadership."
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Hey friends, welcome to the Leader Assistant Podcast. It's episode 343. You can check out the show notes for this episode at leaderassistant.com/343. Again, leaderassistant.com/343. You can find all the links and bios and all the things related to this episode there. So really excited to have 2 guests today. I know it's very rare that I have 2 guests on the show, so this will be a fun conversation. So first of all, Maggie Olson has been on the show many times. Hopefully you know her already and you know her well. She's the founder of Nova Chief of Staff, and she was on several episodes. Episode 257 is one I wanted to call out, where she talks about the kind of transition or the leveling up from EA to Chief of Staff. That's a really good one. Episode 257. And then another one is navigating the EA and Chief of Staff relationship, 260. That was another one of the more popular episodes where she was on the show. And then the kind of the intro to this community was episode 231. So episode 231 was kind of the Maggie story and introducing her to the Leader Assistant community. So those are a few episodes I highly recommend checking out to hear more about Maggie's story. But Maggie, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here. I'm excited to dive in with you and your other guest.
Awesome. And speaking of my other guest, I'm excited to have Leah Warwick. Leah is the Senior Content Manager at the American Society of Administrative Professionals, also known as ASAP. And ASAP is an organization that provides training and resources for administrative professionals. And Leah has been awesome to work with. We just finished up our event in Seattle, and that was a fun time with all of you administrative professionals in Seattle. So Leah, welcome to the show. This is your first time on the show, so we're excited to have you. So the first thing I'd love for you to share is the first 2 things. 1, what city you're in, and 2, what do you love to do when you're not working?
Well, hi, Jeremy. It's so great to be here with you and Maggie. I am located in Portland, Maine. And remind me of your second question.
No, that's great. I sometimes do that. I'll ask 2, 3, 4, 5 questions in one question, and it screws people up, and I don't even realize it. So apologies. So the second question was, what do you love to do when you're not working?
Oh, when I'm not working. Well, I am a cinephile, so I love movies. And so I love to watch whatever is coming out. I'm really big into indie cinema.
Okay, nice. Is there like a really great movie you've seen in the last year that's kind of top of your list? Like you're like, I'm going to see that again and again.
I really like Sean Baker movies. So even though Honora is not my favorite of all the movies that he's done, I really, really enjoyed that one. It was an Oscar winner. So if you're into that kind of thing, I recommend it.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for the recommendation. Well, tell us a little bit about we're so just kind of at a high level, we're going to talk about the state of the administrative profession. We're going to talk about this extensive report that ASAP put together called the State of the Profession Report. And we've got lots of data and numbers and topics to go into on this interview. But before we dive into all of that, I just wanted to hear a little bit about you, Leah, and how your career journey and how you ended up working in the administrative professional industry.
Sure. So, like many people, I have worked in the administrative profession. I worked at a temp agency while I was in college and worked a great number of administrative roles. And I ended up transitioning into arts journalism and B2B media. And I was a film critic for a while. And then I found myself working for business communities, looking at what their struggles are and how to help solve for them. And that's how I came to working with ASAP. And now it's just such a pleasure to work with the administrative professionals community here at ASAP, really dive into the data and the problems and the issues that they're facing and work on providing solutions.
Love it. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. And so to get into the report, the kind of high level here, and we'll link to the report in the show notes at leaderassistant.com/343. But so you all can download that. But kind of a high level, it looks like it was sent out. The survey was sent out in January of 2025, and there was over 3,700 responses from administrative professionals. So that's a great. While it is a small sample size in the grand scheme of things, it's a solid sample size, as I'd like to call it. But the topics that we wanted to kind of highlight coming out of that were a few things like skill gaps and future proofing, compensation, barriers to advancement, all those things. So if it's okay, I'll just kind of popcorn throughout these topics and kind of have you all share your thoughts on each one. Does that sound good? All right,
Sounds
awesome.
good.
So first of all, let's talk about the kind of leading data on development and kind of the key insights with career growth. And there's kind of a stages framework that ASAP has where it's assisting to supporting to partnering to leading. And one interesting stat on the report was that the title that people that took the survey, the title that they have doesn't always equal the scope of their role, right? And I know Maggie and I have talked about this a lot in these prior episodes where it's like, okay, well, some of us have an EA title, but we're really a chief of staff. Some of us have a chief of staff title, but we're really a EA, And so it says 28% of administrative professionals feel their title does not reflect their actual work, especially those performing partnering and leading stage responsibilities. So I want to go to Maggie first on this one. Maggie, as you have had hundreds, and I think you crossed the 1,000 mark, and probably more by the time the show airs. But what is the title scope mismatch, and how are you seeing that in the chief of staff world, but also in as these EAs are taking your course?
We could probably have a full 30-minute conversation about titles out there in the world. It's one of those things that there's a lot of ways that we can dive in. One thing that's really, really important to kind of put out there from the very beginning is that a lot of times our title, we are just so much not in control of whatever our title is based on the companies that we work for. I know we're diving into kind of the administrative professional and the survey and all the things, but obviously my lens is this chief of staff role. And the chief of staff role knows, probably better than everybody else around the confusion with title or the lack of adoption with title. And I always talk about how it's really out of our control. A company may not really understand whatever the title of chief of staff is or another title. They may not like a certain title, so they choose not to use it. They may reserve certain titles for C-suite only or CEO only. When we think about this in the administrative professional world, there's companies out there that have elevated from using the term executive assistant to executive business partner across their entire organization. And the roles may be the same, but the title is different. There's companies out there that really reserve executive assistant for a certain tier of leadership, depending on, if they're really supporting somebody that they call an executive in their company. And then it really varies from there with administrative assistant and all of the other hundreds of titles really that exist. So I am a big proponent for, let's control what we can control. And a lot of times that's not our title. What can we control? We can control the work we're doing, the resources that we find, how to identify those resources and how to dive in where we want to level up and add value and consider how to maybe move from one title to the next, dependent on what that might look like for you. So it's a tricky one. I mean, we could dive into a bunch of different ways as well, but maybe the last thing I'll say here is just because probably a lot of people on the line and listening and watching are confused around executive assistant and chief of staff. So I'm going to share kind of how I think about the two roles just to level set in this conversation, because I know chief of staff will continue to come up as we're talking through this. All right. Executive assistant positions, almost all of them hold the core components of EA or AA or AP work, which is calendar, expense, logistic, travel, and inbox. Almost all executive assistant roles have an element of managing their leader's calendar, managing their leader's inbox, travel, expense, logistics, all those things. The chief of staff role ideally has insight into all of those things, but they are not the doer, the person who's in there every day. Ideally, the chief of staff has visibility into the calendar, but they're not the one making the moves. They're not the one in there every single day in that tactical lens. Now, chiefs of staff are really that like strategic right hand to the leader, where I consider the executive assistant often kind of that tactical right hand or left hand to the leader. That doesn't mean that executive assistants don't approach their work strategically. Many approach their work very strategically, but the day-to-day nature of their role is a bit more tactical. EAs, just like anybody in any role who are doing an incredible job, are going to reach and grab for more responsibility, bigger projects. They're going to lead things. They're going to take on initiatives, and they're going to be, really true all-stars outside of that like necessary like scope of the EA role. That's going to happen in any role, right? So there's going to be crossover, but the true core, those 5 things I listed, almost always exist for the EA role. Those elements do not exist for the chief of staff role, ideally. In the real world, we definitely have some chiefs of staff that are combined with EAs, and we're working to figure all that out. And like that's just how it goes when we're trying to make career moves, and we have to kind of take some and leave some as we move on. But I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit of the difference between EA and chief of staff. Now, finally, chief of staff responsibilities: ensuring your leader's prepared for everything they walk into, aligning the executive team, bubbling up concerns, culture, wins from your organization, trickling down vision, leading cross-collaborative major company initiatives, removing roadblocks, problem solving, the ability to be at that 10,000-foot strategic view, and also really, really good at that tactical execution. So, zooming out, zooming in, being able to do both, and really thinking about the effect of what you're doing on tomorrow, the strategic lens. So I'll pause there and see what comes up for both of you there.
Yeah, no, that's great, Maggie. Thanks for sharing. That's super helpful. And I think that the focus on the strategic portion, again, some of you listening are an executive assistant that does a lot of the strategic stuff and does a lot of the chief of staff stuff that Maggie's talking about. But no matter what your title is, and I know there were a lot of different, I don't have the number right in front of me, but I know there were a lot of different titles represented in the survey, Leah. But the fact of the matter is, if your title doesn't equal your scope or your job level, job description, compensation doesn't equal your scope, then that's definitely a conversation starter, right? It's time to have that conversation with your employer. So Leah, what are your thoughts on this portion and what you guys discovered in the report here?
Yes, well, to echo Maggie's wonderful points, we really found that focusing on responsibilities in this report was how we could start to differentiate, because we found titles like executive assistant across all career stages, meaning there were people who say, I have these strictly tactical responsibilities. I don't really have these strategic responsibilities, and my title is EA. And then we had people saying, I have some chief of staff level responsibilities right now, and my title is EA. So that really showed us through the data that it's not that titles don't matter. It's that when it comes to career advancement, when it comes to certain career advancement indicators like compensation, it's really about the value of the strategic responsibilities that you're providing and what is the extent of those. So are you helping your executive in all of these ways, or are you really driving the priorities of the executive office? Are you aligning executive teams? And if you are doing that right now, you don't have to be a chief of staff necessarily, but that could be an indicator that, hey, like I could be a really good fit for a chief of staff role. And also to Maggie's point, very, very important, an EA and a chief of staff are two different roles. And as much as possible, as much can be achieved, should not be combined.
Yeah. Love it. Well, let's skip ahead to compensation then, since we kind of touched on that a little bit. The survey, the report said the average administrative professional salary, again, this is for the 3,700 plus assistants and administrative professionals that filled out the survey, but the average salary was around $70,000, and the kind of higher level leading administrative professionals were earning an average of $84,000. It said about 10% of participants made over $100,000 a year, which rose from just 4% of participants making 100,000 or more a year in 2020. So 5 years later, slight increase there in people making over 100,000. And then it says the kind of the leading stage administrative professionals in large companies reported the highest salaries. So I've done my own kind of salary research surveys as well. And obviously being an assistant for 19 years and training assistants for 9 years or 10 years, however long it's been, lost track. I've seen kind of the different salary ranges and the different variables, and Maggie's seen this too with her students enrolled in Nova Chief of Staff. But it's interesting how, when people see this report, I feel like there's usually two reactions. There's either like, yeah, there's no way I'd make $80,000, or there's no way I'd ever make that. That's crazy. Or there's no way I would take a job making less than 100,000, right? It's like, it seems to be this extreme response of either I don't know how people are making that much money, or I can't believe people are making that little. And so what have you seen? This is obviously the report, but you've been on the ground, Leah, at these events and having conversations. And what have you seen as far as how to stay competitive, and then what sticks out to you, not just from the report, but obviously just from all of the conversations you've had and interactions you've had at all of these events with assistants when it comes to compensation?
Yes, what you described is right. It's important to note that we represent all administrative professionals, and that all administrative professionals across the spectrum contributed to this report, including receptionists, administrative assistants, all the way up to chief of staff. Mm-hmm. So as you might imagine, pretty wide variance in what they make. And of course, there are so many factors like where you live. If you live in a high cost of living area, right, you are much more likely to make six figures. So for us, we are benchmarking year over year, and we wanted to provide a really high level overview of the health of the profession as a whole. So for us, these are really encouraging numbers because we're seeing not only steady growth, but pretty significant growth, especially since the pandemic. So it's positive trends for sure. I think there's a lot of great resources out there if you want to double click and be like, okay, well, I live in California. So how much, and I'm an EA, how much do EAs make in California? There are a ton of great resources out there, lots of different kind of salary surveys that get more into that. In the macro, and what we hear from people is it does also depend a lot on the industry you're in and the kind of role that you have. Title agnostic even, just what kind of value are you providing to your organization and at what level? So we do find it's pretty consistent that administrative professionals, regardless of their title in government and higher ed, and regardless of where they live, tend to have lower salaries than corporate administrative professionals. So there are some things that have been pretty consistent over time. That's not to say that you should move into corporate if you're in higher ed. There's many wonderful things about working in government and working in higher education. And in some ways, those jobs are more enriching for certain types of people than working in corporate environments. But it is important to look at the data. And if having a high salary is really important to you, then there might be certain industries that are a better fit, and also roles. So again, what we found with the career stages is that if you have partnering and leading stage responsibilities, regardless of your title, and across industries, we found this to be true, your salary goes up. Yeah. So if you are providing more high level, strategic, proactive alignment of the executive office responsibilities to your organization, you have a higher salary in most cases.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think another interesting point was that 51% of administrative professionals who received a performance-based raise had completed external training in the past year. And, we don't need to get into the argument of which came first, chicken or the egg kind of thing, where it's like, do these people go get training because they're the type of person that owns their career development and they take initiative and they're confident and that's why they, receive those performance-based raise, or did they go take the training and then because of the training they got the raise? It's kind of like you can't really say exactly what's what, but what I know from my experience with assistants who take those risks and reach out and try to get development and training, is the confidence they get from it, right? And the confidence is what they need for the number one reason that people don't make more money is they don't ask. And so to get that confidence to ask is huge. And so I'd love to hear, Maggie, what you've seen too from people going through your training when it comes to, has it helped their compensation and has it given them the confidence to ask for what they deserve?
Yeah, it's from my end, and we train aspiring and existing chiefs of staff, and also just senior or executive assistants who are happy in their role, but they want to add more value, think about things more strategically, potentially articulate their value differently. And so the confidence is a big part, and that's why I train folks through hands-on practice, but it's also, for me, it's the articulation of your value. So you have the confidence to walk in the room, and then you have the tools to back it up through articulating what you can do, where you can start, the tools you have, what you're seeing, and how you're actioning those things. I am asked more and more lately as Nova has grown, and we're now at 1,200 students across 36 countries. We had Amsterdam join yesterday, and over 1,000 companies in our course. And I'm asked more recently, okay, so do companies know about Nova? Is Nova Chief of Staff going to help me? Are my companies going to see that Nova's on my resume? Is Nova going to help me from a brand perspective and alignment and like all of that? And I really have two parts to that answer. The first part is like, well, I sure hope so. That is my goal. I'm out there making noise every day about the chief of staff role, and we're growing our company, and we're working with some really big names right now. Some of the biggest household names that we all know and love, we're in conversation with around a lot of very, very cool things. But to me, that is far less important than what our students are going to get in our course. What is far more important that our students get in our course is the confidence and validation and competence and roadmap and structure to, as I was saying, articulate their value and also to know where to start. To be able to walk into a room, whether it's with your boss or in an interview or a peer, and say, hey, I'm ready to lead this. I have an idea for a solve. I want to take on this project or this role, and I've done it before. I know where to start. I have the tools. I have the templates. Like, I'm ready. And that is what I think is, equally or more important than just the brand recognition of a certification or even just saying I've been certified in X, Y, or Z. I think it's, to Jeremy's point, the confidence and then the articulation of being able to back up what you're in the room for.
The Leader Assistant Academy is an AI-powered, on-demand professional development resource. It's for growth-minded executive assistants and administrative professionals just like you. When you enroll in the Academy, you get access to the Leader Assistant course plus streaming access to the audiobook. The course includes video lessons for each chapter of the Leader Assistant book, as well as the entirety of the Leader Assistant workbook study and discussion guide. Additionally, you get access to my exclusive Academy newsletter where I share thoughts on the state of the administrative profession, behind the scenes of my business, and sneak peeks at upcoming projects. Your enrollment also includes a one-on-one 25-minute coaching session with yours truly. But my favorite part of the Academy is the AI agent, which I've named ACE. ACE is the only AI agent on Earth trained on the Leader Assistant book, workbook, course, and Academy newsletter. So if you need guidance at 2 a.m. on a Thursday because you have a big meeting coming up with your executive and you want to ask for help, you can log on to the Academy, interact with ACE, and this AI agent will help you along your journey, guiding you to specific resources that are actually helpful in that moment. To find out more and enroll in the Leader Assistant Academy, visit leaderassistant.com/academy. Yeah, well said. And I think that the other interesting thing is when people, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Leah, but when people are involved in, like, let's say they work in higher education, and I know a lot of assistants in higher education, their salaries aren't great generally. They don't pay great. But because they're in higher education, they generally get a higher professional development budget or a higher continuous learning, line item, right? And so what I've seen, I've even talked with many assistants in higher education where they're like, you know what? I don't get paid great. I do like being involved in the education space and as far as my personal mission and values and all that. But I'm going to take advantage of every single penny that this organization offers me when it comes to continuous learning. And I've seen people do that and really level up and change the game and then go on to, maybe a different industry that pays higher later, or maybe they work their way up in the organization and support the president or the that actually pays a little bit better in the president's office. So anyway, I do see and I met a lot of people at prior ASAP events where they worked in higher education and they're like, yeah, I was really excited that my organization would pay for me to come on this trip and take this training and value me in that way. So Leah, what have you seen on your end as far as this whole dynamic of the compensation and the training and how it all connects?
Yes, you're correct in that salary is only one part of a compensation package, right? So continuous learning is huge. And when you were talking about certification and, does it really help you move forward in your career, or is it more that these people are more likely to move forward in their career if they're the kind of person who wants to get certified and wants external training. I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, definitely at our events, we're seeing people who are so dedicated to continuous learning and growth. And that's going to get you far. Even if, let's say, you're currently in a job that doesn't really pay what you want and you're thinking about your next steps, take advantage. If you have a learning budget, I can't stress enough in any way that you can to take advantage of that, because that will help you get to whatever next stage of your career you want to get to. And I find that always being open to learning and having a growth mindset proves your readiness to be a leader, right? A leader is someone who knows they're not always right, knows that they don't always want to be the smartest person in the room. They want to soak everything up, learn, and grow, constant growth. And I think a lot of the time we get hung up on things like titles and salary. And back to Maggie's point of what are you in control of? You are in control of your own growth in a lot of ways. You might not be in control of your own training budget, but you can advocate, you can ask, you can find free training, and then eventually get to the point. I've heard so many stories of people who have, for example, asked to go to APC and they were told no the first year. And then they're like, well, I better get my business case in order and ask again. And then they asked again, and they asked for not only themselves to go, but their team to go. But that year, they were able to go, but not their team. So they're like, okay, well, I'm here. So I'm going to learn as much as I can, take as much as I can back to my team. And then next year, third year, I'm going to ask for my team to go and have even more supporting evidence of how this is helping the business. And then they say, okay, here's everything I learned and look at the impact it's had on the business. Can I bring the team now? And then they say, yes, you can bring more people. And so change isn't always immediate. It's not always instant as much as we would like it to be. But once you can prove that you are growing and that you can help other people to grow and show the ripple effects of that, you know, whether it's through training with Nova, the Leader Assistant, ASAP, tons of other great resources out there, I really urge everyone listening to take advantage as much as you can.
Yeah. Well said. And I think the interesting thing you said about like, well, they wouldn't pay for me to go, but then the next year they would, and then the next year they paid for my team, and the next year, that as I launched my Leader Assistant Academy this year, I realized that I was doing these onboarding calls with assistants, and they're like, oh yeah, actually, I'm really excited, and I want to bring my whole group. I want to have we've got 8 of us on our team, and I want the whole team to join and whatever, and just. You guys have done such a good job, both of you, with Maggie with Nova and Leah with ASAP and APC and all that, is just done such a good job of equipping people to ask, right? Like providing templates, providing business case letters, providing the data to show that this is a valuable
I learned that from you, Jeremy.
Investment. Awesome. So yeah, that's such a empowering thing to be able to not only equip and train assistants and chiefs of staff and executive assistants and administrative professionals, but to empower them to get their company to pay for it and get their executive to foot the bill is a huge deal. So that's awesome. And I want to kind of transition. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but there's lots of stuff we could talk about. Obviously, there's a lot of good data in this report, which again we'll link to that in the show notes at leaderassistant.com/343. But the skill gaps is kind of where I want to wrap up, and because when we're talking about articulating, like Maggie said, articulating what it is that is what it means to be strategic. Articulating why we deserve that, salary increase or that title change, or that professional development, et cetera. A lot of that has to do with the skills and the gaps that we have, and then the gaps that we fill, right, with our skills. So one thing that was interesting in the survey, and this shouldn't be as a surprise to most, I would think, if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, but AI adoption jumped from 26% in 2024 to 53% in 2025. And again, this is a good solid sample size, but I would actually say it's probably even more than that, in the sense of, and maybe I wouldn't call it AI adoption, but I would call it AI voluntold. You're voluntold by your executives in your company that you need to go ahead and figure this AI thing out. More and more companies are doing that with AI, saying, you got to not only use the AI tools that we now have passed through our security process and whatever, but you need to be efficient in them. You need to actually set up systems with them and use them well. But now it's even another level of the leadership, strategic planning, systems thinking, actually AI agents, which AI agents use the different types of AI like automation, generative AI, non-generative AI to essentially perform labor, right? And so it's not just about setting up an automation tool. It's also about setting up a full automation system for your executive and for your team. And then now it's even about setting up AI agents to essentially do a lot of the tasks for your executive and for you and your team. And so as you guys have really, both of you have been involved in this, in the thick, right, of the AI, wave, I guess I'll call it. What's been maybe your number one takeaway, or number one, like, this is what you want every assistant to hear, as it relates to skill gaps and AI? I'll let Leah go first.
Well, the survey question that we asked was about, do you use AI tools in your daily work? And I suspect the reason the number isn't even higher is that some organizations are not allowing AI to be used. I can think of certain banking institutions that do not allow it at all for their workers to use in their jobs, and some government institutions. And to that, I say, start using it in your personal life right now. There is no excuse to not be using AI tools, like you mentioned. If you are in the assisting stage, you need to get out of the assisting stage. Our mission is to get you out of that stage and into supporting, partnering, and leading, because these AI agents are doing the assistant work. So what we see for the future of the administrative profession is that you are building your own you're building your own AI agents, and you are programming them to create a system. Mm-hmm. And you are using them to do a lot of the tactical work. Not all, but a lot of it. And things are changing so fast that it's just not an excuse anymore to not start at least playing around with it.
Yeah, totally agree. Maggie, how about you?
Yeah, there's probably a lot of people out there listening thinking, I am so behind. I see that Google has an AI agent now. So my kind of, or, an AI LLM like solution, when I Google something, I always see AI in there. And so maybe I am using it, or I see Copilot at work. Maybe I am using it, but I also hear from a lot of people that they're absolutely not using it. And I think it's, common knowledge that there's going to be a generational gap here too, a generational gap with comfort of new tools and testing out platforms and systems that are really unfamiliar and just uncomfortable. And I think it's okay to name that, and it's okay to know that about yourself and think about, okay, but how do I get over that? So I'm in person teaching Nova's course several times a year at this point, in partnership with ASAP, Leah and her team, which is amazing and fun. But I do hear often that folks really need help adopting any basic AI use. So I'm just going to break it down with my most simple tip. So take everything Leah said and everything we've all said up to this point, but just literally do exactly this. Remove Google from your phone. Remove Google from your brain and stop Googling. Stop Googling, stop putting in questions into Google, searching something, asking something, looking something up, and instead open ChatGPT, or, I would probably just say just open ChatGPT if this is you, a non-AI user, and start putting everything you would have put into Google into ChatGPT. It's not for the purpose of oh my gosh, the answers are going to be so much better. They are, but it's more for the purpose of your brain starting to see the ability of ChatGPT, and I'm talking work and personal. Start with personal, like Leah said. You're going to start seeing the breadth and depth and left to right, top to down ability that AI offers. And then you're going to get more ideas of, oh, I should put that in there. And let me tell you, I'm not perfect. Once in a while, I'm like, I'm just going to open Google. Every time I regret it and I swap and I go back to ChatGPT, and I personally try to follow this. And I'm an hourly, if not multiple times per hour user at this point of, AI LLM. So that is my number one tip. Go do it in 3 months. Send us an email and let us know about your AI adoption. It's going to be better. I promise.
Nice. Love it. Great advice. Great advice. Well, this has been super fun conversation. Again, I know there's a lot we wanted to cover. I know we did cover a lot, and maybe we'll do a round two someday and cover more. But the kind of the last hurrah I wanted to let each of you chime in on, and I just want to say, well, one quick thing about AI that I wanted to say is, the thing that I see assistants do a lot is jump in and try every little tool and try every little thing. And they're just like, oh, I'm trying this now, I'm trying this, which that's great. It's good to be curious. But I would encourage you to find the manual, painful, repetitive problem and process at your work or with your executives' work, potentially if it's not you directly. Find that problem to solve first. And once you identify that manual, painful, repetitive problem, then you'll have some direction for what you need to learn and what type of AI tool could work to help solve this problem. So I recommend doing that. There's a book, actually have it on my desk. I think it's called Lean Learning. It just came out this year. Yeah, it's called Lean Learning by Pat Flynn. Highly recommend it. But basically, it's this idea of learning less, like instead of being so like learn everything. I'm going to learn everything, and then I'm going to get overwhelmed, and then I'm going to give up. Right? Instead of that, it's like, no, how are you going to achieve more by learning less? So how are you going to actually find a problem to solve and then go learn a type of AI or learn a tool that can solve that problem? That's what I would recommend if you're trying to start, similar to what Maggie said, just start using ChatGPT instead of Google. That's a great tip, because you go to Google when you have problems, right? So anyway, great advice. So the last hurrah here, again, you can check out all the links and the full report, and reach out to Maggie and Nova and Leah and ASAP at leaderassistant.com/343, leaderassistant.com/343 for the show notes for this conversation. But what's your one big takeaway, Leah, from this report, or even if it's not related to this report, what's the one thing that you want leader assistants of the world listening right now to either be encouraged by or challenged by as we wrap things up?
Well, this actually relates to something Maggie said earlier, but I'll restate it. There is a lot of uncertainty and fear that we're hearing from administrative professionals, fears of becoming irrelevant, very valid fears about job loss and the very rapid rate of change that we're experiencing. So if I can leave the listeners with one thing, it would be look at what you do have control over. There's a lot that you don't have control over right now. And so one of those things could be, like you said, Jeremy, okay, finding a problem to solve and working on your prompting and AI skills to solve that specific problem. Figure out what is in your control to do and add value by doing that. So really think about the fact that when things are changing, there's a lot of opportunity in there too. Yes, the administrative profession is going to change. It's changed before, it will change again. The only constant is change. And if you lean more into the opportunities and how your role could expand and evolve, maybe you become a chief of staff, maybe you become an executive operations expert, like thinking about the positive ways in which your role could change is the direction that we're pointed in. And I think will really help you to chart your own path forward.
Love it. Love it. Maggie, how about you?
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. Like, where do you add value? How can you add value that's new and different than what you're doing today? And maybe that's a development resource. Maybe that's leaning into a network or a conference. Maybe that's, diving into Jeremy's Leader Assistant Academy, right? Like, who knows what it might be, but what is it? Where are you going to level up? Because we all know things are changing. And rather than sit back and be, maybe a little scared, it's okay to be scared, but where can we add value and show our worth and articulate that value and lean into it? So there, I think we're both saying the same things. It was a great report, Leah, from your team. So it's been fun chatting about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Maggie. Thanks, Leah. And thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate all the work that both Maggie and Leah and ASAP and Nova are doing for the administrative professional world and community and the leader assistant community. And so, I'm always, for those of you listening to the podcast for a long time, that I've highlighted many of the trainings and the blogs and the podcasts and the resources and the courses and the events all over across the board and across the world, really, for the assistant community. And so I'm always excited when other people step up and provide resources that I don't have the time or the energy to provide, and that I don't have the skill set right to provide. And so it's awesome to partner with organizations who really value the assistant community and can add their own take and their own value to the training world. So appreciate you guys and appreciate you coming on the show. And we'll look forward to talking soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you both so much. And yes, we love strong advocates in this profession. And I just have so much respect and admiration for you both.
Yep. Jeremy, you're the best. We appreciate you too.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com.
The ping-pong back-and-forth game of manually scheduling meetings is unnecessary and inefficient in today's automated world. It's time to embrace calendar automation for increased productivity and capacity. You Can Book Me by Capacity is my favorite automated booking solution. It's a game changer for me and my executive. You can manage scheduling for your entire executive team, send automated reminders, add buffer time between appointments, and much more. You Can Book Me integrates with your existing Microsoft and Google calendars so you can add automation without disrupting your current workflow. Go to leaderassistant.com/calendar to learn more and sign up for a free trial of this powerful scheduling automation tool. That's leaderassistant.com/calendar.